All right, so the last thing that I want to show you is how to do exactly what we just did, where you solve for a side when you're given another side and an angle measure. Only this time, instead of being given the angle measure in degrees, you're being given the angle measure in radians. Okay. Now remember, radians can be converted into degrees. But what I'm going to show you is that you don't need to convert these radians into degrees. All you have to do is change the mode of your calculator and then do things exactly how you did them in the last video. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this calculator right here, and you can do the same thing with a graphing calculator. In a graphing calculator, you got to hit the mode button. But on this one, it's this button that says DRG. I hit DRG, and I'm going to move over to rad, which means radians. And now down here you can see rad, and that means we are in radian mode. Now this calculator is, instead of waiting for something like a 75 for degrees or a 23 for degrees, it's going to be looking for a pi. Now you don't have to put in pi, but it's going to be very difficult if it's given, if your radians are given in pi, it's going to be very difficult to do if you only key in 3.14. So we're going to make use of this button right here that says pi, okay? And so that's how we're going to calculate these. So this says solve for the hypotenuse if the opposite side is equal to 8. Okay, so here's the angle right here, pi over 5 radians, okay? And the opposite side over here is 8, and we want to know the length of the hypotenuse when the opposite is 8. Well, we just need a trigonometric ratio that includes hypotenuse and opposite. Well, that's sine. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to put in, to solve this, we're going to say that sine of, but instead of putting in degrees here, we're going to put in pi over 5. Sine of pi over 5 is equal to opposite, which in this case is 8, over hypotenuse. And now to solve this, we're going to multiply both sides by hypotenuse to cancel, multiply by hypotenuse. Then we're going to divide by sine of pi over 5 on both sides, divide by sine of pi over 5, okay? And so now hypotenuse, or we're canceling over here, so now hypotenuse is equal to 8 divided by sine of pi over 5. Now sometimes, depending upon who your professor is and depending upon the circumstance, you may be asked just to simply enter 8 divided by sine of pi over 5. Okay? But for me, for right now, I want you to calculate it. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go 8 divided by sine of, I'm going to hit the pi button, divided by 5 and close the parenthesis, so sine of pi over 5. And I press enter, and I get 13.61. And so the hypotenuse is equal to 13.61 if the opposite side is equal to 8. Okay? All right, let's do a couple more examples. Let's say, and I'm gonna want you to pause the video and try it yourself. Let's solve for the adjacent side if the hypotenuse is 20. Solve for the adjacent side, that's this one right here, adjacent to the pi over 5, if the hypotenuse is equal to 20. Why don't you pause the video and you try to solve this, and then I'll do it. Okay, so we've got adjacent and hypotenuse. So we know that we're going to need a cosine, right? Adjacent and hypotenuse. So it's going to be cosine of pi over 5 radians, is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent divided by hypotenuse, which is 20. This is an easy one. We just multiply both sides by 20 and key it in the calculator. So 20 times cosine of pi, whoops, hit the wrong button, pi divided by 5, and that gives me 16.18. So the adjacent side is going to be 16.18. Okay? All right. Now let's try another one. It says solve for opposite if adjacent is 2. Solve for opposite if adjacent is 2. Okay? Well, why don't you pause the video and try this one on your own. All right, so we're solving for opposite. We're given adjacent, so we need the trig function that includes opposite and adjacent. That's tangent, okay? So we're going to go tangent. Now, we haven't changed the radian measure here, but this radian measure could be anything between 0 and pi over 2. So it could be like, 7 pi over 19 or something like that. I probably wouldn't give you something that crazy, but just know that it doesn't have to be pi over 5. So tangent of pi over 5 is equal to opposite over adjacent. Opposite over, and adjacent in this case is 2. So now we solve. Multiply by 2 on both sides, multiply by 2, and opposite is equal to 2 times tangent of pi over 5. 2 times tangent of pi over 5 is equal to 1.45. So opposite is 1.45. Okay? All right. So I just wanted to show you with these examples, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do other examples. You know that I'm going to give you lots of examples, lots of questions on the practice quiz, so that you can practice this a lot. But hopefully this was enough to give you an idea of how to use trig ratios to be able to solve for the length of one side when you're given the other side and you are also given an angle measure. And you can do it in both degrees or you can do it in radians. Okay? That's it for today. We'll see you in the next set of lessons.